Imagine someone is trying to manipulate you right now. In fact, studies show we encounter around 6 to 10 manipulation attempts daily. That colleague who's always making you feel guilty about leaving work on time? That's manipulation. The friend who subtly puts you down while pretending to give advice? Manipulation. The family member who uses your past mistakes to control your present choices? You guessed it, manipulation. But what if you could spot these tactics instantly? What if you could see through the smoke and mirrors, recognize the psychological triggers being used against you, and develop an immunity to these subtle forms of control? According to research, over 70% of people can't identify when they're being manipulated in the moment. They only realize it hours, days, or even months later. But by then, the damage is often done. Decisions are made, money is spent, or relationships are damaged. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on these hidden tactics. We're going to explore the dark psychology of manipulation. But before we dive deep into these psychological tactics, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notifications. This isn't just another self-help video. This is your guide to psychological self-defense in a world where manipulation has become an art form. Manipulation isn't just about words. It's about creating an environment where people think they're making their own choices while actually following someone else's script. It's a psychological chess game where you don't even know you're a player. And to master this game, to defend against its masters, you need to understand every move in their playbook, every strategy, every subtle tactic that makes their manipulation so effective. What I'm about to share with you comes from years of psychological research, real-world case studies, and documented manipulation techniques used by everyone from skilled negotiators to dangerous cult leaders. And trust me, once you understand these patterns, you will never see human interaction the same way again. And let me warn you, some of what you're about to learn will probably make you uncomfortable. You might start recognizing manipulation patterns in relationships you thought were completely healthy. You might realize that conversations you had just yesterday were carefully crafted manipulation attempts. But remember, awareness, no matter how uncomfortable, is always better than ignorance. The manipulation triangle. Every master manipulator, whether they know it or not, relies on what I call the manipulation triangle. 3 core elements that, when combined, create the perfect environment for manipulation. First corner, emotional exploitation. Think about the last time a coworker came to you looking distressed. They reminded you how they covered for you last month when you were sick, mentioned how overwhelmed they are, but never directly asked for help. Yet somehow you felt obligated to offer. That's not coincidence. That's emotional exploitation at work. This corner of the triangle uses reciprocity guilt, emotional displays, implied obligations, strategic timing. And here's the terrifying part. Studies show that decisions made under emotional pressure are more likely to be regretted later. But in the moment, logic doesn't stand a chance. Second corner, information control. Master manipulators don't just play with emotions. They control what you know and when you know it. They might share selective pieces of truth, create artificial scarcity, or present false choices. Imagine your manager gathered the team and saying, "Big changes are coming, but I can't share the details yet. Just trust me." By withholding key information, they create uncertainty, keeping everyone on edge and dependent on them for updates. That's not poor communication. That's deliberately creating anxiety through information gaps. Third corner, pressure points. The final corner is what makes the other 2 so powerful. Every manipulator targets 3 specific pressure points: fear of loss, desire for approval, need for consistency. Research indicates that these triggers engage brain areas that are also activated during physical pain. This overlap may explain why manipulative behavior can feel literally painful once you become aware of it. But here's the thing. Knowing these basics isn't enough. Manipulators have developed sophisticated techniques that combine all these elements. And in our next section, I'm going to show you the 7 most dangerous manipulation tactics being used right now, including one that's probably happened to you in the last 24 hours. Tactic number 1. Gaslighting, the reality distortion. Maybe you're just remembering it wrong. That never happened. You're being too sensitive. You always do this. Making up stories and blaming me for no reason. No one else seems to have this problem with me. Maybe it's all in your head. If any of these phrases made you feel a chill of recognition, there's a reason. You've likely been a target of one of the most dangerous manipulation tactics ever documented: gaslighting. Let me show you how subtle yet devastating this can be. Imagine you're absolutely certain your partner promised to help with an important family event. When the day comes and they're nowhere to be found, you bring it up. "But you promised you'd be there." And they say, "I never promised anything. You always twist my words." So you say, "But we talked about it last week." And they say, "See, this is exactly what you do. You make up stories in your head and then blame me. Maybe you should talk to someone about why you keep doing this." Notice what just happened? In the span of 3 sentences, they denied a real event, they attacked your character, they made you defend your sanity, and suggested you're the one with the problem. According to psychological studies, this is exactly how gaslighting works. It doesn't start with big lies. It starts with tiny seeds of doubt, planted so carefully that you think you're the one who grew them. The technique has 3 stages. First, confusion, creating doubt about basic facts, denying documented events, rewriting shared experiences. Then defense. When you question them, they turn it back on you, call you too sensitive, make you defend your sanity. And third is depression. You start to question your memory, apologize constantly, depend on them for reality checks. The most dangerous part? Gaslighting works slowly, like a frog in slowly boiling water. By the time you notice what's happening, your reality has already been distorted. But here's how you fight it. Document everything. Keep texts, emails, take notes after important conversations. Trust your gut. That uneasy feeling is your psychological immune system at work. Seek external validation. Confide in trusted friends or family. Remember, your memory isn't perfect, but it's not completely wrong either. But gaslighting is just the beginning. The next manipulation tactic is even more subtle because unlike gaslighting, which makes you feel crazy, this one makes you feel special until it's too late. Tactic number 2, love bombing. The sweetest poison. "You're the most amazing person I've ever met. I've never connected with anyone like this before. I can't believe I found someone so perfect. You're my soulmate. I want to spend every moment with you." Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? Like something straight out of a romantic movie. But what if I told you these exact phrases are often weapons in a manipulator's arsenal?
Bruh.
Think about it. Have you ever met someone who seemed almost too good to be true? Someone who showered you with attention, affection, and admiration right from the start. Someone who wanted to spend every moment with you, who seemed to understand you perfectly, who made you feel like you were walking on air. Well, welcome to love bombing, a manipulation tactic so effective that by the time you realize what's happening, you're already emotionally dependent on your manipulator. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the bombardment. Excessive compliments, constant attention and messages, quick escalation of commitment, intense declaration of connection, expensive or meaningful gifts, future faking, like we'll travel the world together. Think of this phase as the manipulator creating an emotional high. They're essentially flooding your brain with positive emotions, making you feel like you found something incredibly rare and special. Just like a drug dealer offering the first hit for free. They're creating an addiction to their attention and validation. The bombardment is so intense and feels so genuine that your natural defensive barriers start coming down. Phase 2, the hook. Subtle mentions of their damaged past, stories of people who betrayed them, creating an us against the world narrative, gradually isolating you from friends and family, making you feel uniquely special for understanding them. This is where the manipulator starts laying their groundwork for control. By sharing their damaged past and stories of betrayal, they're not just gaining your sympathy. They're giving you a script. They're showing you what happens to people who hurt them, while simultaneously making you feel special for being different. It's like they're building a cage around you. But the bars are made of your own empathy and desire to prove you're not like those who hurt them before. Phase 3. The switch. The constant attention suddenly stops. Affection becomes conditional. They start finding flaws in you. You begin working desperately to get back to phase 1. This is the payoff for the manipulator. Once they've created the addiction and isolated you, they start withdrawing the very thing they used to hook you: their attention and affection. But here's the cruel genius of it. They don't withdraw it completely. Instead, they create an intermittent reward system, where you occasionally get glimpses of the person from phase 1. This keeps you hooked, constantly working to earn back what you thought you had, while they exert more and more control over your behavior. Now here's what you need to watch for: intensity that doesn't match the timeline, pushing for quick commitment, you're different from everyone else, making you feel uniquely understood, or love declarations within days and weeks. These warning signs are like your psychological immune system trying to alert you. When someone's feelings seem to develop at an unnaturally fast pace, it's often because they're manufactured. Think about it. Real connections take time to build. Real understanding comes from shared experiences and gradual discovery. When someone claims to understand you completely or declares undying love within days or weeks, they're not seeing the real you. They're seeing what they want you to be. Or worse, what they want you to believe you are to them. It's like someone claiming they've mastered a language after one lesson. It simply doesn't work that way. And here's how you protect yourself. Set firm boundaries from the start. Maintain relationships with others. Trust your gut about timing. Remember, real love grows slowly. Watch for the too perfect syndrome. Your defense against love bombing isn't about becoming cynical or closing yourself off to love. It's about maintaining a healthy perspective and strong boundaries. Think of it like building a house. You need a solid foundation before you can start decorating. Real relationships need time to develop trust, understanding, and genuine connection. When you maintain your other relationships and keep your independence, you're creating a support system that helps you see things clearly. Your gut instinct is like your emotional smoke detector. When something feels too perfect or moves too fast, it's usually because there's fire behind that smoke. But while love bombing attacks your heart, our next tactic targets something even more fundamental: your basic need for social acceptance. And it's happening to you right now, whether you realize it or not. Tactic number 3. Social proof manipulation. The invisible pressure. Everyone's doing it. Don't you want to be part of the group? Nobody else seems to have a problem with this. You're the only one who hasn't agreed yet. These phrases might seem innocent, but they're actually triggers for one of our deepest psychological needs: the desire to belong. Welcome to social proof manipulation, a tactic that turns your basic human need for connection into a weapon against your own judgment. It's so effective that even when you know it's happening, your brain still wants to follow the crowd. Here's how it works. Phase 1. Creating the illusion. Manufacturing consensus, using peer pressure, creating FOMO, or the fear of missing out, highlighting social isolation, making examples of others. Think of this as the manipulator creating an artificial reality. They're not just suggesting that you should do. They're creating a false world where everyone else is already doing it. It's like being told there's a party happening and you're the only one not invited. Phase 2. The pressure build. Subtle exclusion hints. Group dynamics manipulation. Social comparison. Time pressure tactics. Status anxiety triggers. This is where the manipulator turns up the heat. They're not just showing you what you're missing. They're making you feel the pain of being left out. Every group photo, every inside joke, every casual mention of shared experiences becomes a psychological weapon. Phase 3. The conformity trap. Rewarding compliance, punishing independence, creating dependency, normalizing group behavior, reinforcing the cycle. Once you start conforming, The manipulator creates a reward system. Suddenly, you're part of the group. But this acceptance is conditional. Step out of line, and you'll feel the chill of potential exclusion again. Now, here's what you need to watch for: artificial urgency, limited time only, group pressure tactics, isolation threats, consensus claims without evidence, status-based manipulation. When someone starts emphasizing what everyone else is doing, they're not informing you. They're trying to control you. This tactic works because our brains are wired to seek social acceptance, even when it goes against our better judgment. And here's how to protect yourself. Question the consensus. Verify claims independently. Trust your individual judgment. Remember, real choices don't require pressure. Maintain your independence. Next, let's expose a tactic so subtle you might be using it on yourself. Tactic number 4, emotional blackmail. Your conscience as a weapon. After everything I've done for you, fine, I'll just deal with it myself. I guess I'm just not important to you. These are just guilt trips. They're calculated triggers designed to turn your conscience against you. Welcome to emotional blackmail. A manipulation tactic that doesn't just make you feel guilty, it makes you think the guilt was your idea all along. It's so effective that most victims blame themselves even while being manipulated. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the fog setup. Fear, obligation, and guilt. Creating emotional debt, establishing expectations, building dependency, highlighting sacrifices, and setting up obligations. This is where the manipulator lays their foundation. They're not just doing nice things. They're creating a ledger of emotional debt you'll never be able to repay. Every favor, every sacrifice, every moment of support becomes ammunition for later use. Phase 2, the trigger pull. Withdrawal of affection, silent treatment, victim positioning, martyrdom displays, guilt induction. Now the manipulator starts collecting on those emotional debts. They don't directly ask for what they want. Instead, they make you feel like a terrible person for not offering it yourself. It's like being tried, convicted, and sentenced in an emotional court where you're both the accused and the judge. Phase 3, the self-blame cycle. Internalized guilt, automatic compliance, self-doubt spiral, emotional exhaustion, pattern reinforcement. This is the masterstroke. You start policing your own behavior, anticipating their emotional needs, and blaming yourself for their unhappiness. You've become your own manipulator. Now here's what you need to watch for. Disproportionate reactions to no. Keep score of past favors. Conditional love, friendship. Subtle threats of abandonment. Making you responsible for their emotions. When someone makes their happiness your responsibility, they're not sharing their feelings. They're weaponizing them. And here's how you protect yourself. Recognize emotional debt isn't real. Set firm emotional boundaries. Remember, no is a complete sentence. Trust your right to make choices. Maintain emotional independence. Just like a computer needs protection from viruses, your psyche needs protection from emotional manipulation. When you establish these boundaries, you're not being cruel. You're being healthy. You're saying, my emotions are valid, my choices are mine, and while I care about others, I'm not responsible for their happiness. But while emotional blackmail plays with your conscience, our next tactic messes with something even more fundamental, your sense of choice itself. Tactic number 5, false choice manipulation, the illusion of control. You can either do this my way, or it's up to you. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. The choice is yours, but remember what happened last time. I'm giving you options here. These aren't real choices. They're psychological traps designed to make you feel like you're in control while steering you exactly where the manipulator wants you to go. Welcome to false choice manipulation, a tactic so clever that victims often thank their manipulator for giving them options. It's like being handed a menu where all roads lead to the same destination. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the setup. creating artificial options, limiting visible alternatives, pre-framing choices, setting up false dichotomies, creating urgency. The manipulator isn't giving you choices. They're eliminating you. They're like a magician forcing a card while making you believe you picked it freely. Phase 2, the pressure points. Highlighting negative consequences, emphasizing time constraints, using fear of loss, creating artificial scarcity, emotional loading of options. This is where they add weight to your decision. Each option comes with carefully crafted emotional baggage, making one choice feel increasingly impossible while the other becomes the only reasonable option. Phase 3, the forced hand. Self-blame for choices, reasonability shifting, future leverage creation, pattern establishment, decision ownership. The real genius is when things go wrong, you blame yourself. After all, you choose this option, even though the deck was stacked from the start. Now here's what you need to watch for. Limited option presentations, rushed decision demands, extreme either-or scenarios, hidden alternatives, preloaded consequences. When someone presents you with only 2 options, they're usually a whole spectrum of choices they don't want you to see. And here's how you protect yourself. Question presented options. Look for hidden alternatives. Take time to decide. Create your own options. Remember, false urgency is a red flag. Your best defense against false choices is remembering that real decisions rarely come in neat, prepackaged options. Life is full of alternatives. If someone's trying to limit your choices, they're probably trying to limit your power. Speaking of power, let's talk about a manipulation tactic that doesn't just control your choices. It controls your entire reality. Tactic number 6, moving the goalposts, the endless chase. You're almost there, just one more thing. I thought you'd do better than that. I expected more from you. These aren't just expressions of disappointment. They're calculated triggers designed to keep you in an endless cycle of trying to prove yourself. Welcome to moving the goalposts, a manipulation tactic that turns your desire for approval into an endless marathon where the finish line keeps disappearing. It's psychological quicksand. The harder you try to reach solid ground, the deeper you sink. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the initial standard. Setting reasonable expectations, creating clear targets, establishing benchmarks, building investment, promising rewards. They start with something achievable to get you invested. Like a fisherman using the perfect bait, they need you to take that first bite. Phase 2, the shift. Gradual requirement changes, adding new conditions, minimizing achievements, raising standards constantly, creating moving targets. Just when you think you're reaching the goal, it transforms. Yesterday's perfect becomes today's barely acceptable. It's like climbing a mountain that grows taller with each step. Phase 3, the perpetual chase. Continuous disappointment, self-doubt cultivation, increased effort cycle, diminishing satisfaction, dependency creation. You're now caught in this web, constantly striving, never arriving. The more you invest, the harder it becomes to walk away. Now here's what you need to watch for. Constantly changing standards, never-ending improvements, minimized achievements, delayed satisfaction, shifting blame for failures. When success feels like trying to catch smoke with your hands, you're probably dealing with a goalpost mover. And here's how you protect yourself. Set clear written standards. Document initial agreements. Celebrate your achievements. Trust your accomplishments. And know when to walk away. Remember, real goals don't run away from you. If you feel like you're chasing an ever-moving target, it's not because you're not good enough. It's because someone's moving the finish line. But while moving the goalpost exhausts you with endless demands, our next tactic works by offering you exactly what you want, until it's too late. Tactic number 7, intermittent reinforcement, the addiction maker. I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. You know I love you, I've just been stressed. This time will be different, I promise. You're the only one who truly understands me. These aren't just promises. They're hooks in a sophisticated psychological trap that creates literal addiction to toxic behavior. Welcome to intermittent reinforcement, the most addictive manipulation tactic known to psychology. It's the same principle that makes gambling addictive, but applied to human relationships. And once you're caught in this cycle, your brain's own chemistry works against you. Here's how it works. Phase 1, the baseline. Creating perfect moments, showing full potential, building intense connection, establishing normal, setting high standards. They start by showing you heaven, giving you the perfect relationship, boss, friend, or partner. Like a dealer giving out free samples, they need you to know exactly what you're going to crave. Phase 2, the withdrawal. Unpredictable behavior, hot and cold treatment, attention withdrawal, affection inconsistency, random rewards. Suddenly, the perfect behavior stops. But here's the trick. It doesn't stop completely. It comes in random, unpredictable bursts, keeping you hooked on the possibility of return. Phase 3, the addiction cycle. Craving development, reward seeking, behavior justification, dopamine manipulation, dependency deepening. This is where brain chemistry takes over. You're now addicted to the highs, tolerating the lows, and constantly seeking the next fix of positive treatment. Now here's what you need to watch for. Unpredictable positive treatment, cycle of great awful behavior, intense highs followed by lows, random acts of kindness, pattern of leaving or returning. When someone's love feels like a slot machine, unpredictable but just frequent enough to keep you playing, you're caught in intermittent reinforcement. And here's how you protect yourself. Recognize the pattern. Document behavior cycles. Seek consistent relationships. Trust patterns, not promises. Break the addiction cycle. Remember, real love, real friendship, real professional relationships, they're consistent. They don't make you feel like an addict chasing their next fix. Now that you understand these 7 manipulation tactics, you're probably seeing your past interactions in a whole new light. But here's the thing about manipulation. It rarely comes in neat, isolated packages. Real manipulators combine these tactics like a toxic cocktail. They might start with love bombing, switch to intermittent reinforcement, sprinkle in some gaslighting, and finish with emotional blackmail. It's like a psychological chess game where they're always 3 moves ahead. But now, so are you. You can spot the love bomber's too perfect beginning, the gaslighter's reality distortion, the social proof pressure points, the emotional blackmailer's guilt trips, the false choice illusions, the moving goalposts' endless demands, the intermittent reinforcement's addiction cycle. Your defense strategy. Think of these manipulation tactics like a disease. Now that you can identify the symptoms, you can fight the infection. Here's your protection protocol. First, trust your gut when something feels off. It probably is. Your instincts evolved over millions of years. Trust them. Second, document everything. Manipulators hate evidence. Keep texts, emails, and notes of conversations. Reality is your strongest ally. Third, maintain connections. Isolation makes you vulnerable. Keep your support system strong and diverse. Number 4, set firm boundaries. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting yourself. Number 5, stay aware. Knowledge is your shield. The more you understand these tactics, the less power they have over you. Remember, manipulation works in the shadows. By shining a light on these tactics, you've already taken away half their power. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because while manipulation thrives in isolation, awareness spreads through connection. And remember, you're not paranoid if you spot these patterns. You're not too sensitive if you call them out. You're not making things difficult by maintaining boundaries. You're protecting yourself. And that's not just your right, it's your responsibility. Let me know in the comments which of these tactics you've encountered and how you dealt with it. Your story might help someone else recognize their own situation.